When I'm looking at this paper, like I said, I'm just gonna kind of split it up. So I have one of my drawings over here and the other over here. You don't have to make the drawing big. The size doesn't really matter because you're gonna be taking photographs, so you get to kind of manipulate what I'm seeing. What I would suggest is that you use something straight to draw a vertical line to kind of keep it balanced and keep it even on one side as it would be on the other. So I do have a ruler handy. I'm just gonna draw a straight vertical line to help me out. But you could also just, if you wanna cut the paper and just fold it in half, you can do that as well. Or if you have a fresh piece of paper, you can just fold the paper in half and use that. Or you could draw both of them on one fresh piece of paper or on the back of the one that I had here, just so that you have a center line right here that you can draw on either side. I'm just gonna stick to my vertical line here. I'm gonna draw another one on this side because I'm going to do 2 drawings today. All I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna draw some basic shapes. A circle, maybe a triangle, maybe even like a rectangle or a square. And then I'm just gonna connect them with curved lines. So if you want to make your drawing even more perfect, you can trace whatever you have around. Lids to containers work really well. That's a great idea. If you have cookie cutters, that works. I have this like little terracotta dish that I use sometimes for a mold. So I'm just gonna use that and I'm gonna plop it down here, try to center it on the line, and then I'm gonna just trace it. So I'm gonna show this vase with a really big body, and then I'm going to simulate like sort of like a lip up at the top. So I'm gonna draw a triangle, and that's all gonna connect on the straight line in the middle. If I wanted to add like a trimmed foot, I could draw a rectangle down at the bottom. Now, this line here, or this area here, this like really sharp corner, would have been impossible. We need to soften these sort of sharp angles by just drawing a curved line that connects one shape to another. Okay, so I'm gonna mimic that on this side, and we're just trying our best. I can see that I'm a little bit off, so I might need to erase that and make it a little more dramatic. Actually, I think that this one needs to get fixed. And then the same thing at the bottom here. So I'm gonna draw my curved line and just sort of finish that off. Okay, wow, what a beautiful pot. Shoot, this is so nice. Okay. All right, so I'm looking at this thing straight on, okay? It's not 3D. I'm not seeing any sort of shape to it. I'm not seeing shadows. I'm not seeing that. This is still a circle to me. It's not a sphere. So we have to make it sort of look 3-dimensional. The next thing is that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to erase my guidelines, all right? Before I add my texture, when I start shading this, I'm just gonna do kind of like a sketchy job shading this in, but I'm gonna use these basic shapes to shade this in a way that would make sense. So if I wanna shade a circle, I have to imagine that there's a light source. So I'm just gonna imagine that the light is shining right here. Okay, so like the sun is coming down on this circle, which is gonna be a sphere. It's shining right in this area. So in this area, I'm not gonna have any shading at all. The opposite side of this area is gonna be the darkest. And then there's usually a little bit of a reflection on the very bottom from whatever surface that this thing is sitting on. So it's gonna be a little bit light here. Imagine it like a moon. But when I'm shading this, all of the darkness is gonna be in this sort of area here, in this sort of crescent moon area. That's gonna be the darkest area. So then the next level is gonna be a little bit lighter. I was trying to do this so well that I was like gonna submit it to like an art gallery. I would be doing all of my shading in the direction of the form, so that'll help make it look a little more 3D. So then the next level is going to be even lighter. This area is going to be almost white. So that's what's going to happen in this area, but I don't want to cut it off completely because it connects to another form, which is a triangle. It's like an upside down cone. So you just have to imagine where your light's coming from. So the light's going to be hitting my pot right in this area. Okay, so that's the area that I'm not really going to shade. The darkest area is then going to be down here, but I also have this area here, which is underneath. If I can imagine this form, this area is going to be underneath this big body. So I want this to be kind of dark. If I'm imagining that this flares out a little bit, it might catch some of the light. So the very bottom of this might be not as dark as the top that's getting cast a shadow from the big sphere. I also really like to use my eraser as a tool too. So if you have one and you want to use that to either blend or to lift some of the graphite off the paper, that's always a good option. So I'm going to do the same thing up at the top, but I'm imagining that this light is coming down. This is going to be much more well lit, because if the light is truly coming from up here, this doesn't have any shadows cast on it. So when I go to shade it, the whole thing is going to be, it's kind of the same idea as the bottom. So like this side is going to be a little bit darker, but the whole thing is overall going to be a little bit lighter. Now, one final step that you might want to take just to make this look even more 3D is just to make a little bit of a cast shadow down at the bottom. It doesn't have to be accurate if you're an art kid and you know what I'm talking about. Just enough to give this a little bit of grounding. I also took a minute in there and used my eraser to clean up the edges a little bit where I went outside the lines. I got a little aggressive with my coloring. I must have some pent-up frustration about coronavirus. So, you know, this is just, like I said, this is just the basics. This is not necessarily, you know, by any means like professional drawing, but it's enough to get you started. If I were to take this, and if you could imagine this drawing turned like if it was like rotated and I saw the other side, it would probably look very similar to this side. So you don't need to do like front view, side view, because it's the same. But if I were to take this and if I were to like tip it forward or tip it backward, it would change what this looks like. So that brings me to my next line. Now, let's say I'm looking inside the pot. That's something when I ask you guys to do sketches, a lot of times we don't think about what the inside's gonna look like. So what this is gonna be is it's gonna be a series of ellipses. And an ellipse is when you're looking at a cup and you can see the top of the cup, but you're not looking at it straight on. You see like an oval. So I'm gonna start this by drawing kind of like almost like a football sized or not football size, football shaped oval. So like kind of like an egg. So what this represents is me looking down at my vessel. And once this comes together, then you can get started on it. But the more or the wider this ellipse is, the less of the sides of the pot you'll see. So if you're trying not to do all this work again, then you may want to make this pretty wide. Okay, so right now mine's like probably about medium. So like a narrow ellipse would look something like this. So the ellipse then would, you know, I would have my pot here, and it would go something like that. Okay, but a wide ellipse will be more like a circle, and then I'm probably gonna see the sides of my pot like here. I'm not sure if that makes sense, because I can't see your faces and I can't see if you understand what I'm talking about, but hopefully it becomes a little more clear once I work a little bit more on this drawing. So I started with my first ellipse. Okay, this is me looking down into my pot, all right, my vessel that I made on the wheel, pretend. So this part here, I'm comparing it to the width of the top. This is wider. The foot at the bottom is really narrow, so I'm not actually going to see this part at all. Okay, so I'm gonna start this right around the same area, just for reference. You don't have to draw yours side by side, but it does come out a little bit wider. All right, so I want my sides to come out right about there. And if this is truly a sphere, if this part of the vase is truly a sphere, it's not going to matter if you're holding it this way or this way or this way. It's always going to be the same. Okay, so this that I'm drawing now, this shape is going to be a circle, and I just remembered that I traced it, so I should pull this back in here. You now see that this is overlapping. Like this is essentially like a cone. So this is now a cone that goes this way, and this sphere overlaps, but like this is intersecting, like this cone is intersecting the sphere. So like it's as if almost like it punctured a balloon. All right, so like it's a dart and it poked through it. So from here to here you'll see it, just like from here to here you see it. All right, now I have my sphere here. The bottom was I think I drew a rectangle for that. That's gonna be like around here, maybe a little bit lower. Maybe I will see some of it. This also needs an ellipse. Okay, so like this ellipse up at the top, this is me looking inside, but this one is going to be the opposite. This is going to be blocking me out. So when I go to draw my ellipse on this one, it'll look similar to the pitch of this one or the width of this one, but I'm not going to see through it. I'm only going to see the bottom line. So basically like a smile shape. Remember that my I had to soften the curves on this one, so I'm just going to do that over here. All right, then I can erase my lines. This also is like, this is like peeking into my vessel, so this might, you might see an ellipse there. This is where I would then see into the depths of my pot, so I'm just gonna go ahead and shade all of that area in. And remember that I have to soften these curves down at the bottom too. Alright, so here are the parts of my vase. I've got my lip, alright, I've got my body, and I've got my foot down here, okay? The foot, I only see the bottom part of it. So next thing I'm gonna do is start to shade this. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me via email, or you can contact me on Google Chats during my office hours. All right, I'm gonna finish this up.